Shocking, NASA's 3 a.m. revelation of a giant pyramid on the dark side, what they're not telling you. It was the dead of night. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over the sprawling desert landscape. Dust swirled in the wind as a lone figure peered through a telescope, gasping at the sight that had just ignited the world. A massive pyramid, stark and otherworldly, rose majestically on the dark side of the moon. The silhouette loomed like a shadow of an ancient past, begging all who dared to look closer. What was this colossal structure doing there, hidden from every human eye? Could it be proof of an extraterrestrial civilization, or was it simply a trick of light and shadow? Whispers spread like wildfire across news channels and social media platforms. NASA had released startling images from a new lunar probe, each one more baffling than the last. Experts scratched their heads, theories ping-ponging between alien architecture and natural lunar formations. The pyramid was unlike anything seen before, its sharp edges defying the soft curves of the moon's surface. Some claimed it was a message, a beacon calling to those brave enough to tackle the unknown. Others believed it was just a cruel hoax meant to rattle the masses. The truth, however, was far murkier, and the suspense hung heavy in the air like an impending storm. As more details surfaced, strange elements began to unravel. The pyramid wasn't alone. Around it, a series of perfectly aligned structures were reported, dome-like shapes and linear formations that seemed to pulse with an ethereal glow. Every late-night news segment was met with widened eyes and gasps of disbelief. Could there be a hidden civilization waiting in the shadows? Or were these merely the byproducts of random lunar chemistry? A tight knot formed in the stomach of anyone who dared to ponder the implications. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And then, without warning, a shocking twist unfolded. Reports began surfacing about strange noises emanating from deep space, rhythmic sounds that echoed throughout the cosmos, almost as if answering calls from Earth. The tension escalated, eyes across the globe glued to their screens, minds racing with possibilities. What if this pyramid was a portal? What if it led to something beyond human comprehension? The thrill of the unknown clung like a vice around the throats of millions, a mixture of hope and dread. As the days turned into weeks, the question loomed larger than life. What were they not telling us? The world watched with bated breath, ready to uncover a truth that may shatter everything we thought we knew. And with that uncertainty, one thing became undeniably clear: something colossal was on the horizon, and whatever lay ahead was bound to change humanity forever. The air was thick with anticipation, a collective breath held tight as the world waited for NASA to unveil the next chapter in their lunar mystery. News anchors anxiously leaned into their microphones, eyes wild with excitement, while social media erupted with speculation, theories swirling like the dust in the desert winds. What lay behind the veil of the moon's surface? Would the truth bring enlightenment or chaos? Jeremiah, a seasoned astrophysicist and longtime NASA consultant, couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. He paced his dimly lit office, the soft glow from computer screens casting shadows that danced ominously. Every fiber of his being screamed that the pyramid was more than it seemed. He could still hear the unsettling noises, those strange sounds from the depths of space. They resonated not just in the fabric of the cosmos but in the marrow of his bones, a haunting chorus that whispered of secrets meant to stay buried. As the clock struck midnight, an urgent call pulled him back from the brink of his thoughts. "Jeremiah, you need to see this," crackled the voice on the other end. It was Amy, his colleague and a brilliant researcher who had extensively studied extraterrestrial phenomena. "What is happening?" he breathed, heart racing. "It's about the structures around the pyramid. We've detected unusual energy readings. It's unlike anything we've seen before." In that moment, Time slowed as images of the moon's surface flashed through his mind. Could these structures be powered by some unknown technology, or worse, could they be a trap? Jeremiah grabbed his coat and raced to headquarters, the tight knot of fear now painfully twisting in his chest. The corridors buzzed with tension, scientists darting about like fireflies in a jar, their eyes wide with uncertainty. He found Amy in the control room, her fingers dancing across screens filled with jagged charts and waves of unsettling frequencies. "Look here," she said, pointing at a pulsating graph. "These spikes, they correlate with the structural alignments we see on the moon." Jeremiah leaned in closer, the light from the monitor casting a harsh glow across his face. "If they're synchronized." "What does that mean?" "It could mean they're communicating. Or worse, they're waiting for something." Her voice wavered, a tremble in her usually steady hands. Outside, journalists screamed questions, their voices blending into a cacophony of chaos. "What are you hiding, NASA?" they shouted, their accusations sharp as arrows. A sense of urgency weighed down every heartbeat. The answer hung like a shadow over them, unsettling and taunting. Suddenly, an alarm blared, piercing the air and shattering the mounting tension. Panic erupted as lights flickered and screens went dark. A feeling of dread settled in Jeremiah's gut. He exchanged a frantic glance with Amy. In that moment, the building felt alive, pulsing in sync with the unknown lurking just beyond their reach. As calm descended briefly, Jeremiah turned to his colleague, urgency dancing in his voice. "We have to act. We need to find out what is really happening before it's too late." Before they could carry out their plan, the power returned, and the monitors flickered to life again. The room fell silent, breath caught in a shared gasp. The screen displayed a live feed from their lunar probe, showing the pyramid in stark detail. But this time, something was different. The structures pulsed with a bright light, and then there it was, a symbol, alien and ancient, glowing ominously at the pyramid's base. Jeremiah's heart raced as he tried to make sense of it. "What does that mean?" he whispered. Amy could only shake her head, eyes wide with fear. "I don't know. But we need to find out before it reaches us." And just outside their grasp, the moon's silent watchers prepared to reveal their secrets, igniting the fear that what had been hidden for eons was only just beginning to emerge. What awaited them on the dark side of the moon? The tension in the room was electric. Jeremiah and Amy stood rooted to their spots, eyes glued to the flickering screen that displayed the mysterious symbol. It pulsed in rhythm with their quickening hearts, a sinister heartbeat that echoed through the control room. "Look at it," Amy murmured, her voice a mere whisper as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile veil of comprehension. "It's alive." Jeremiah felt the weight of her words. Every instinct told him they were witnessing something extraordinary, something beyond human understanding. "We need to analyze that symbol," he commanded, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning within him. As Amy began processing the visuals, a sense of urgency filled the air. Jeremiah watched her fingers race over the keyboard, the clacks echoing like thunder. Each keystroke pieced together information that would unravel their very perception of reality. Charts with trajectories and spectral readings illuminated the walls, each flicker revealing deeper mysteries tied to the moon's surface. Behind them, muffled voices grew louder as the chaos outside seeped into their bubble of focus. The press was unleashing a torrent of theories, ranging from plausible to utterly absurd. "What if the pyramid is a weapon?" someone shouted. "What if it's a gateway?" The hysteria seeped into Jeremiah's mind like a poison, adding to his unease. "Amy, do you really think they're waiting for something?" he asked, gripping the edge of the table as dread washed over him. The corners of Amy's mouth turned down in concern. "We've seen energy alignments before, but there's a pattern. It's deliberate." Before Jeremiah could respond, the screen blinked again, displaying a live feed of ground control on the moon. Their probe had maneuvered closer, revealing more of the dark crater where the pyramid stood. Suddenly, a shadow flicked across the landscape, darkening the already ominous surface with an energy that sent chills down Jeremiah's spine. "Did you see that?" he gasped, pointing at the monitor, heart pounding. On the screen, an outline of something massive shifted behind the pyramid. A figure? A machine? The camera lost focus momentarily before it steadied, showcasing the symbol once more, now brighter than ever. It's responding!" Amy exclaimed, her eyes wide. The beacon pulsed even more intensely, as if in direct response to their observations. The torrents of uncertainty surged again as alarms blared throughout the base. A new notification flashed, a distress signal originating from their lunar probe. "They're detecting interference," Amy shouted, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's breaking up. Pull all data. Now! We need to understand this before the ground beneath them quaked," the sensation reverberating through the building. A low hum began to rise, throbbing in time with the pyramid's glow. Lights flickered violently overhead as a surge of energy pooled, sloshing through the cables and equipment like restless water. The panic became palpable. Scientists darted around the room, eyes wide in disbelief. "What are we looking at?" one voice echoed, lost in the confusion. Jeremiah forced himself to breathe. "It's happening, they're awakening something." Then, without warning, the lights extinguished completely, plunging them into darkness. The hum intensified, vibrating in Jeremiah's chest, drowning out the chaos. He felt an icy grip on his heart. Suddenly, everything went silent, the collective breath of humanity held tight against the unknown. In the pitch black, Jeremiah felt Amy's trembling hand grasp his. "What if it's too late?" Her whispered fear hung in the air like thick fog. Just then, a blinding flash exploded from the monitor, as if responding directly to their trepidation. The symbol cast an eerie light, revealing something moving, an ancient, colossal entity rising slowly above the surface of the moon, both magnificent and terrifying. Jeremiah's breath caught in his throat. "What is that?" And as the air crackled with surreal energy, uncertainty surged through him. Because what? Just what if, they were about to uncover a truth far more horrifying than they ever imagined? Was the moon truly a home for secrets, or had they awoken an unimaginable terror? The darkness was thick and oppressive, wrapping around Jeremiah and Amy like a suffocating blanket. He felt Amy's grip tighten, her pulse racing against his palm. The flickering monitor was their only lifeline to the outside world, a window through which they could glimpse the unimaginable. "Turn the backup power on!" Someone yelled from the shadows, panic spilling into frantic movements. But Jeremiah couldn't tear his eyes from the screen. The colossal entity towered against the pale lunar surface, its details obscured yet unsettlingly present. "What is that thing?" Amy's voice trembled, a mixture of awe and horror. He didn't know. He only knew they had uncovered a nightmare. The ancient silhouette shifted, great limbs extending, as though stretching after eons of slumber. Was it real? Or a trick of their minds, fraying under the weight of what they had unearthed? "Data stream! We need to capture this!" he shouted, shaking himself out of the paralysis that threatened to grip him. Amy switched back to her console, fingers scrambling. The monitor flashed erratically, distorting their feed as they struggled to stabilize the connection. With each burst of clarity, they caught sight of that symbol pulsing like a heartbeat, syncing with the massive figure's movements. "I'm losing it!" Amy cried, her face illuminated by the fading screen. "Julian, we need to hold on!" Jeremiah interrupted, his heart racing. "I think it wants something. Look!" He pointed, as the entity raised one colossal arm, tracing the air before it with deliberate intent. Something remarkable happened. The symbol flickered in response, its intensity growing in synchrony with the movements of the giant. Almost instinctual, Jeremiah felt a pull, a magnetic urge to see what would unfold. Outside, the commotion grew worse. Shouting, running feet, the sound of metal scraping against metal. It was chaos. The energy in the control room crackled, a tension that seemed to bend reality that much closer to breaking. "Jeremiah!" A voice fought through the noise. It was Barbara, the lead scientist, panic etched deep in her features. "We need to evacuate the base. The energy readings are off the charts." Jeremiah shook his head. "No! Barbara, if we leave now, we may lose the probe. We can't abandon our only chance to understand what is happening. Did you see that?" Amy gasped, eyes round with fear. The entity froze, its gaze fixated on them through the screen. For a moment, it felt as if the world had gone still, a moment of fatal recognition. As if it was aware of the two humans watching, contemplating their next move. The energy spiked, lighting the control room with a green glow, shadows dancing off the walls. The monitor gave a violent jerk, the image of the ancient being flickering wildly. "We're going to lose it!" Amy exclaimed, her fingers desperately battling the interface's resistance. And then, as if time had unraveled, a deafening roar erupted from the entity, echoing through the room. The sound wasn't just a mechanical noise. It resonated in Jeremiah's bones, shaking him to the core. His knees felt weak, and he gripped the edge of the console, fighting against the sensation of being swallowed whole by the enormity of it. "Get back!" Barbara shouted, stepping back, eyes wide, terror stark against her usually calm demeanor. "We can't give up," Jeremiah said fiercely. "If it's waking up, we have to understand why." Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, a burst of brightness momentarily blinding everyone. The room was alive with chaos, but all eyes remained glued to the monitor. And there it was, the symbol, now blazing brighter than ever, resonating with an energy they had never felt before. As the chaos continued around them, the pulse of the symbol quickened, mirroring their race against time. But was it a call of awakening or a prelude to destruction? Jeremiah's heart raced not just with fear but an overwhelming sense of fate. They were at a crossroad, and they had no idea which way to turn, and as they stood there, the towering figure seemed to lean forward, as if about to breach the boundary between two worlds. What would happen next? Would they learn from it, or would they pay the ultimate price for awakening something they weren't meant to? The truth hung heavy in the air, and Jeremiah couldn't shake the feeling something wicked was about to unfold. The roar resonated like thunder, shaking the foundations of the control room. Jeremiah's heart raced as he felt the ground beneath him tremble. The entity on the screen glowed with a fierce intensity, the pulsing symbol now a beacon of light in the encroaching darkness. It was as if the very air disliked the tension between their world and the ancient being that stirred on the moon. "Capture that energy!" Barbara's voice pierced through the chaos, urgency lacing her commands. "Now! Do whatever it takes!" Amy's fingers flew over her console, sweat glistening on her brow. "I can't stabilize the feed," she called back, eyes wide with terror. "It's too unstable." Jeremiah couldn't look away from the screen. It felt alive, almost sentient, as the gigantic form continued to lean closer, its features becoming marginally clearer. Was it curiosity? Or malice? He clenched his fists. "We need to find a way to communicate. It's trying to show us something." "Trying to show us?" Barbara exclaimed, disbelief slathered with fear in her voice. "This is nothing like we've seen in our wildest nightmares. Just look at it." The air crackled anew, and with it, images spun rapidly on the monitor, a series of symbols overlapping in chaotic succession. A frantic rhythm of light and shadow enveloped them as the energy readings spiked dangerously high. Then, as if recognizing their frantic desperation, the ancient being stilled. The swirling symbols fell silent, forming a single coherent image. The room fell into an eerie hush, the kind that felt heavy with expectation. Jeremiah leaned closer, hoping against hope that whatever was coming next would lead them to understanding. How could something so vast be reduced to mere patterns of light? "What the hell is happening?" Amy whispered, her voice trembling. "Stay focused," Barbara shot back, trembling slightly herself. "Keep an eye on the readings." Suddenly, the lights overhead flickered violently, plunging them into darkness once again. The monitor, however, blazed like a lighthouse in a storm. The image shifted, outlining what looked like an intricate diagram, a geometric shape that resembled a pyramid, detailed and precise. Jeremiah's breath hitched. "I've seen that symbol before, in the Arcadia archives." "It what?" Amy interrupted, her panic morphing into surprise. "You're sure? What does it mean?" "Not just any pyramid. It's a gateway," he gasped, realization crashing over him. "It's a message." At that moment, the roar shifted into a low growl, vibrating the walls, as if the entity sensed their comprehension. "Get back to work on that feed. Now!" Barbara shouted, urgency rekindling her command. People moved around the room frantically, monitors blinking back to life, sweat-soaked shirts clinging to backs as they scrabbled to gather readings, data feeding back into the chaos. Jeremiah continued to stare transfixed at the screen. "It's calling to us," he murmured. "I can feel it. It knows we're here. And what if it intends to keep us here?" Amy whispered, fear gripping her every word. A blinding flash filled the room, stealing every breath. The energy shifted again, becoming a wave of pulse that intertwined with their very being. "Shut everything down! Now!" Barbara ordered, but the words drowned in a cacophony of screams, instruments echoing their distress as they fought to keep control. Jeremiah's heart raced painfully, drowning beneath the pressure of impending doom. They were dancing on the edge of an abyss they could not comprehend. A wrong move could send them spiraling into depths unknown, and suddenly, all at once, the energy shifted from a roar to a whisper. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Jeremiah's breath caught in his throat as the monitor displayed the symbol once more, now pulsing steadily, waiting. "Jeremiah, we have to get out," Amy urged, pulling on his arm. Something wicked was indeed about to unfold. He could feel it, like a shadow creeping through the corners of his mind, growing ever closer. But before he could respond, the lights cut again, plunging them into absolute blackness. Just as despair began to climb its way into their hearts, a single word echoed through the silence, chilling them to the core. Awaken. What would that awakening mean for them all? Would they unleash horrors beyond measure, or might they find salvation in the depths of the unknown? Jeremiah's stomach knotted with uncertainty, the weight of the moment pressing down on him like a stone. The choice was theirs, but one fact was astoundingly clear: they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. The lights flickered back on, but it was a sickly light, the kind that made shadows stretch and stretch until they clung to every corner with a palpable dread. Jeremiah felt the chill crawl up his spine. There it was again, the faint murmur of the word that had haunted their minds. Awaken. Do you hear that? Amy's voice trembled, laced with panic. Is it speaking to us? Or warning us? Jeremiah whispered, each word pricking his skin like needles. The air thickened as the monitor shifted again, revealing silhouettes of familiar shapes, pyramids sprouting like weeds in a desolate garden. Those structures, looming large in a star-speckled void, felt both ominous and compelling. Barbara cursed under her breath, struggling to regain control. Status update. I want a full read on that energy. Jeremiah could hear the urgency in her tone, but his attention was glued to the screen. What if it truly is a gateway? He murmured. He had to believe it was something more than just an ancient horror. Could there be a chance, a flicker of hope nestled amidst the terror? What does it lead to? Amy pressed, her voice rising in pitch. What if they're not just symbols? What if it's a trap? As if struck by a lightning bolt, the room jolted once more. A hum resonated through the walls, vibrating deep into their bones. It was almost rhythmic, a dark serenade pulling at their very souls, making Jeremiah's heart thump wildly. We need to get out. Amy pleaded again, this time more forcefully, shaking Jeremiah out of his trance. But Barbara stood firm, arms crossed, defiant. No! We can't turn back now. We need to document this, whatever it is. Her voice was suddenly swallowed by an eerie resonance, a void filled not with silence but a chaotic symphony of whispers. Jeremiah felt a sudden sickness wash over him. Each whisper spoke in languages he didn't understand, but they echoed like ominous chants, invoking a primal fear better left unspoken. They seemed to swirl around him, cocooning him in a chilling embrace that begged him to step away, to run. The pyramid-S shape twisted on the screen, morphing into the void surrounding them, and then blazed with an intensity that made the room feel like it was caught in a roaring inferno. The digitalized pyramid pulsed defiantly, each pulse resonating with Jeremiah's heartbeat. Everyone settled down. Barbara's voice broke through the haze of terror, and the crew fell momentarily silent. Amy's fingers shook as she swiped through readings. Energy S increasing. It's unstable, I don't know how much longer we can hold this. All the more reason to utilize it, then. Barbara pressed, her eyes burning with fanatic zeal. Jeremiah's stomach twisted. You can't be serious. If this thing connects to whatever is out there, whatever else is out there is already here, Jeremiah, Barbara shot back, her intensity encasing them like a vice. This could be our only chance. Just then, a low rumbling tremored through the air, shaking the monitors. The room tilted ever so slightly, and panic bubbled over as the lights flickered again. No! Amy screamed, grasping her console desperately. We're losing it. When the lighting stabilized, everything felt different. The whispers turned sharp, a palpable tension turning every breath into a weight that suffocated them. The monitor screamed blindingly bright as the symbols began to shift wildly again. This time, they pulsed erratically, each pulse a grim warning. The gateway, it's reacting, Jeremiah said, eyes wide. It isn't just waiting anymore. The walls echoed with the sound of 1,000 voices rising to a crescendo, blurring the boundaries of reality. Barbara's face strained of color. This is it! She shouted. Brace for impact. A thunderous rumble shook the ground, rattling the very framework of the facility. All eyes were glued to the screen as the pyramid began to crack, fissures forming along its surface. What lay within? Would it bring salvation or devastation? Maybe both. Before Jeremiah could process another thought, the world around them exploded in a blinding flash, a kaleidoscope of light and shadow twisting together, tearing apart everything he knew, and then, in that split second of annihilation, the whispers abruptly ceased. Nothing but silence remained. Where are we? Amy uttered, her voice breaking through the desolation, a heartbeat in the void. The moment hung heavy, poised on the knife edge between realms. Jeremiah felt the weight of truth loom over them. They were now standing at the doors of the unknown. Ready or not, the awakening had begun. What other secrets lay hidden just beneath the surface? What awaited them in this maze where reality began to fray? Jeremiah's chest tightened as he squinted into the oppressive darkness. All around, the air felt dense, thick with an unshakable heaviness, as if the very fabric of reality had been stretched too thin. The silence screamed at him, overwhelming, intense, leaving only the distant echo of his own panting breaths. Where are we? Amy's voice was small, tremulous, a fragile thread in the weighty silence that enveloped them. Nothing makes sense, Jeremiah murmured, his gaze darting around this unfamiliar space. They stood on what seemed to be a warped surface, like glass reflecting stars that didn't exist. The strange lights pulsed subtly, echoing the trembling of his heart. Before he could gather his thoughts, a sharp crack split the silence, as if a whip had lashed through the void. The noise sent shivers racing down his spine. Did you hear that? He whispered, turning to the others. Barbara snapped her head towards him, her eyes wide. Stay focused. We need to assess our surroundings. She was trying to mask the fear that seeped into her voice. What if we're trapped? Trapped? Amy echoed, her voice rising in pitch. Barbara, we can't be. The ground beneath them quaked again, heavier this time. A low growl reverberated within the space, vibrating through their bones. Jeremiah stumbled slightly, catching himself against the shimmering wall. This isn't just any place. What if it's alive? What if it's not just alive? Barbara shot back, her composure faltering. What if it's aware of us? The darkness twisted again, and suddenly, the light intensified, blaring brightly, showcasing the scenery ahead. Tall, jagged pyramids loomed, their surfaces etched with sinister symbols that swirled and shifted as if imbued with a grotesque life of their own. Jeremiah felt a pull, an unyielding urge to step closer, to decipher the mysteries contained within. But then, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. They surged through the air like a tide, crashing over him with a raw power that made his instincts scream. Listen to them! He heard Amy shout, her hands raised protectively as if to shield them from whatever was coming. They're calling! She gasped, fear mixing with a strange kind of wonder. Jeremiah clenched his fists, battling the surge of emotions within him. No! We can't, but before he could finish, the ground exploded beneath them. The pyramids trembled, fissures slicing through their bases, and an immense shadow loomed over them. The walls reverberated with the power of thousands of whispers, each word echoing an ancient language, one that danced just out of reach of comprehension. Run! We need to get to cover! Barbara shouted, but her voice was lost amid the shattering noise. They scrambled blindly, feet pounding against unyielding ground. The dark horizon seemed to shift, taking on a life of its own. Light and shadows intertwined like angry waves crashing against the shore. A figure emerged from the depths of the chaos, an immense silhouette formed within the spiraling mists, an indescribable terror taking shape. Amy gasped as it drew closer, its features hazy and blurred. But the intent was clear, it was seeking something, searching for them. I can't run forever! Jeremiah cried, the weight of his fear anchoring him. What does it want? Maybe it wants us to awaken! Barbara shouted, her eyes wild, brimming with a reckless mixture of fear and exhilaration. Maybe we can hide from our fate, but just as she spoke, a thunderous roar erupted, shaking them to their core. The figure lunged, an abyss of darkness that consumed the space between them. Jeremiah felt as if time itself had frozen. Brace yourselves! He shouted, propelled by desperation. But even the sound of his own voice echoed hollow, lost in the maelstrom of unfolding catastrophe. As the tumult reached a deafening peak, the ground cracked wide open, swallowing them into a bottomless void. The darkness spiraled, faster and faster, pulling them into its depths, a whirlwind of confusion and despair. Then, just as abruptly, they plunged into stillness. Silence wrapped around them like a blanket, and Jeremiah wrestled with the swirling darkness in his mind. Where had they landed? Were they even still alive? The questions clawed at him, a relentless tide threatening to crush his sanity. For a moment, it felt as if reality might shatter into a million pieces. And then, a single voice pierced the silence, and sent a rush of icy dread cascading down his spine. Welcome to the awakening. What had they awakened? What other horrors awaited them in this treacherous abyss? Jeremiah's heart raced, the pulse pounding in his ears as that chilling voice echoed through the stifling silence. Welcome to the awakening. It was a sinister greeting, dripping with malice, and it sent a jolt of icy fear spiral down his spine. He exchanged terrified glances with Amy and Barbara, their eyes wide, mirroring the same dread that coursed through him. Who is that? Amy whispered, trying to suppress her quaking voice. The space around them shimmered, resonating like a tuning fork caught between dissonance and harmony. Jeremiah strained to see through the inky blackness that surrounded them. Shadows shifted like phantoms, creeping closer, inching ever nearer. Then, without warning, a flood of light surged forward, illuminating their surroundings. It revealed a colossal chamber, vast and unfathomably ancient. The air crackled with energy, suffocating yet invigorating. Along the walls, intricate carvings morphed and changed as if alive, telling a story too disturbing to comprehend. Stay close! Barbara shouted, looking around for something, anything to anchor them in this nightmarish landscape. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Jeremiah swallowed hard, scanning the room. He noticed that the ground was lined with strange runes glowing faintly, flickering like dying stars. What are these symbols? He murmured, bending closer, his curiosity temporarily overpowering his fear. As he traced his fingers along the markings, a rush of images flashed in his mind, scenes of destruction, of worlds colliding, of screams lost in the void. It felt like memories that weren't his own but were crashing through his consciousness with a sickening speed. Stop! Stop! He yelled, yanking his hand back as if burned. Are you okay? Amy asked, fear lacing her voice. Yeah, he lied, shaking his head to rid himself of the memories. I'm fine. But he didn't feel fine. A heaviness clung to him, an unsettling knowledge that something terrible was about to happen. A low rumble threaded through the chamber, vibrating beneath their feet. The carvings on the walls glowed brighter, pulsating in rhythm with the growing tremor. The shadows morphed into specters, dancing in frenetic patterns, their elongated limbs flailing as if reaching for them. Jeremiah, look! Barbara pointed, her voice barely reaching through the encroaching chaos. In the center of the room stood a massive pedestal, towering over them like an ancient monolith, and atop it, an object that shimmered like a star plucked from the sky. What is that? Jeremiah breathed. Something precious, a voice rasped from the darkness, growing closer. A figure stepped from the shadows, draped in tattered robes that swirled around it like mist. The sight of it sent another wave of chills coursing through Jeremiah. You've awakened what should have remained sleeping, the figure proclaimed, its hollow gaze fixed on them. You are here to fulfill an ancient prophecy, one of destruction, rebirth, and choice. What choice? Jeremiah shouted, anger flaring. We didn't ask for any of this. The figure's smile was a twisted rictus. Would you rather succumb to oblivion, or embrace your fate? The awakening has begun. You must decide before the shadows claim you. Jeremiah's stomach dropped. A cold sweat formed on his brow as he weighed his options. How could he make a choice when the stakes were so high? Before he could respond, the walls began to fissure, deep cracks forming like angry mouths ready to engulf them. Run! Barbara yelled, pulling on his arm. We don't have time. Together they bolted towards the entrance they had come from, but the landscape shifted, twisting and contorting. Shadows lunged from the walls, grasping for them, eager to pull them into their dark embrace. That he could feel the darkness clawing at his heels, a palpable presence hungry for their souls. What do we do? Amy screamed, the fear in her voice giving way to desperation. But Jeremiah knew he had to act. We have to find out what that thing is, he shouted, pointing back to the pedestal. If it's the key, we can use it somehow. Just as they turned back, a blinding flash cut through the air. The figure reappeared directly in front of them, its presence freezing them in place. You think you can take what is not yours? Jeremiah's mind raced, scrambling to piece together the fragments of understanding in the chaos. And then he realized, are you the one controlling the shadows? He demanded, stepping forward. What power do you hold over this place? Power? It echoed, a sinister laugh bubbling up. What I hold is not power, but choice. Choose wisely. Before he could press for more, the room shuddered violently. The ceiling began to crack. Beams of blinding light shot through the fissures. Now, he urged, we need to make a choice before it's too late. As chaos erupted around them, a new urgency surged through Jeremiah, and the weight of the moment bore down heavy. Would they dare confront the truth? What lay in the heart of that blinding object? The chamber began to collapse around them, and they had only seconds to decide. Jeremiah, what do we do? Amy cried, pleading with fear-filled eyes. He looked at the pedestal, then back at the encroaching shadows, then to his friends. This is it, he yelled. We're taking our fate into our own hands. In the heart of terror, they surged forward. And then nothing. The darkness rushed forward in a suffocating wave, and they found themselves hurled into the depths, a single breath lost in the swirling void. What ancient truth awaited them in the shadows? Would they even survive the choice they were about to make? The sensation of falling engulfed them, a free fall into an abyss that felt like it could stretch on for eternity. Jeremiah squeezed his eyes shut, the rush of air around him drowning out everything but the rhythm of his heart echoing in his chest. When he opened them again, they were no longer in the chamber. Instead, they stood in a twisted landscape of chaos, a turbulent storm that raged over a rugged ground cracked open like a dried riverbed. Dark clouds roiled overhead, swirling with flashes of lightning that illuminated the jagged terrain. Where are we? Barbara's voice trembled, barely managing to rise above the howling wind. Jeremiah scanned their surroundings. It felt as though they were in a nightmare that birthed itself from the depths of despair. Shadows twisted into figures in the distance, indistinct yet undeniably present, their movements mimicking the chaos swirling around them. I don't know, he said, fear knocking against the walls of his mind. As if summoned by his uncertainty, a figure emerged from the dimness beyond a tall silhouette, its body shrouded in an enigma. Jeremiah's breath hitched as the figure moved closer, its outline sharpening against the intermittent flashes of lightning. It has begun, the figure intoned, its voice resonating like thunder. Who are you? Jeremiah demanded, defensiveness clawing at him. What do you want from us? You are the key to revealing the truth, the figure replied cryptically. It gestured to the horizon, where a massive structure rose above the crumbling ground. The Pyramid of Fate awaits. Jeremiah felt a surge of dread. What fate? Our fate? Yes, the figure said, stepping into the light of the storm. Its face was warped, a swirling mass of shadows and light. You must confront your past and the choices you've made, or you will be forever lost to the shadows. Confusion spiraled within him. What do you mean? We didn't choose any of this. Just let us go. He felt panic tighten around his throat like a vice. Choices have already been made, came the chilling response. You cannot escape your destiny, Jeremiah. Not anymore. You said we had a choice. Amy shouted, her eyes wide and fierce. You do, the figure replied, an unsettling calm in the storm. But the choice may not be what you desire. Only those willing to confront truth can reclaim hope. The shadows are waiting, and so is the pyramid. Jeremiah turned to his friends, feeling the weight of their desperation pressing on him. We've got to find a way out. We can't let this thing control us. But a sense of unease gripped his heart. Perhaps the truth was deeper than they imagined. With a swift resolve, Jeremiah led the charge toward the pyramid that loomed ominously in the tumult of the storm. Each step felt like wading through a murky fog, but an intense heat began to radiate from the structure as they neared it. The ground trembled beneath them, vibrating with an energy that was both frightening and exhilarating. Suddenly, the shadows lunged at them, coiling and sprawling like living tendrils. Jeremiah fought to keep his footing, the darkness wrapping around him like a snare. Don't stop. Keep moving, he shouted, adrenaline propelling him forward. All around, screams echoed from the shifting figures in the dark, a cacophony of torment that chilled him to the bone. Their faces twisted in anguish, reminding him that he was not just running from the shadows, but from the fears and mistakes that haunted him. Then they reached the pyramid's threshold. Its surface shimmered, pulsating like a heartbeat. Light flowed from cracks within, casting eerie shadows that danced around them. Jeremiah felt the warmth envelop him, tempting him to step inside. We have to go in, he urged, glancing back at his friends, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. What if it's a trap? Barbara said, clenching her fists in anxiety. Then it's our trap to face, Jeremiah replied, solidifying their united front. We'll face whatever it is together. With a resolute breath, they stepped forward. The darkness clawed at their heels, fierce and relentless. In that very moment, as they crossed the threshold, they heard the figure's voice echo one last time, the choice is yours. But remember, fate rarely forgets. What awaited them beyond this shimmering entrance? Would they contend with their demons or succumb to the echoes of their past? The real question loomed: could they truly reclaim their fate, or was the darkness always meant to win? The moment they stepped through the entrance of the pyramid, everything shifted. The air became electric, buzzing with potential. Jeremiah squinted against the brilliance that poured from within. A vast chamber opened up before them, illuminated by beams of radiant light that danced like ribbons across the ceiling. The walls hummed with an energy he could feel in his bones, a resonating pulse that called to him. This is it, Jeremiah breathed, awe twisting with trepidation. The pulsating light revealed symbols flickering on the walls, ancient glyphs that promised insights and secrets long buried. He reached out, fingers trembling, and traced one of the symbols. Instantly, visions filled his mind, fragments of histories that had tread paths through the cosmos, echoes of civilizations that had risen and fallen. As he gasped in astonishment, Amy and Barbara stepped closer, their expressions a mixture of fear and fascination. What are you seeing? Amy asked, desperation mixing with hope. It's all connected, he stammered, pulling himself back from the swirling visions. These stories, they remind us of who we are. Who we could be. Suddenly, shadows from the outside crept in, dark tendrils reaching toward them with sinister intent. The specters swirled around, embodiments of the anxieties and regrets that had haunted him all his life. Shadows whispered their fears and failures, clawing at the edges of his psyche, urging him to turn away. No! We refuse to be defined by our darkness, Jeremiah shouted, grounding himself in a fierce determination. He felt his friends close at his side, their presence steadying him. We fight together, Barbara declared, her voice steely and unwavering. We confront our pasts. We take back our narrative. With renewed strength, they pushed deeper into the heart of the pyramid. The air thickened with anticipation. Vibrant light enveloped them, and the symbols on the walls flickered wildly, a cosmic heartbeat echoing their resolve. And there, at the center, stood a pedestal outfitted with a shimmering crystal, pulsating with colors that seemed to stir all the fears and hopes of mankind. Is this what we need? Amy hesitated, glancing at Jeremiah, a hint of doubt clouding her eyes. Only one way to find out, he said, stepping forward. This could alter everything. He reached out, grasping the crystal. An explosion of light exploded around them, blinding for a moment, and then silence enveloped the pyramid like a warm blanket. The darkness momentarily ceased, and in that heavy stillness, the chaotic whispers began to dissipate. It felt as if the shadows were retreating, taking with them the weight of despair. The trio closed their eyes, allowing the moment to wash over them. The past flickered behind closed lids, but instead of visions of chaos, they saw glimmers of hope, new beginnings, friendships forged in adversity, dreams that refused to fade. Then, the chamber responded. Golden lights exploded like a supernova, and the pyramid around them shifted and changed, collapsing before their eyes in a brilliant display that overshadowed the terror they had faced. It wasn't an ending, it was a rebirth, a transformation from ruin to potential, from suffering to liberation. Jeremiah opened his eyes. Something had changed within him, a realization that washed over like sunrise after a storm. This was never just about us, he whispered in awe. It's always been about everyone, all of humanity. Together, we can awaken the best of us. We can tell a new story. As the brilliance unfolded around them, the shadows that had once clung to their souls burned away, leaving behind echoes of laughter, life, and unity. In that illuminating moment, the figure from before reappeared, vivid yet different, less menacing, more wise. You have done what many could not, it said, voice resonating like a soothing wind. You embrace not just your fate, but the fates of all. Change has begun. Change, Jeremiah echoed, his voice thick with newfound resolve. It's time for a new world. The figure offered a nod, and suddenly, in a breath, the landscape stretched and reshaped. Vibrant colors burst to life, giving birth to a horizon of possibilities. As the brightness enveloped him and his friends, Jeremiah felt a part of something magnitudes greater than himself. They had ascended, not just into a new reality but back to their own world where hope thrived. Emerging from the pyramid, they found themselves back in the control room, dazed yet elated. The chaos had quelled, leaving only an air of expectation. News anchors gushed about sightings beyond the moon, and reports flooded in about unexplained phenomena all around the world. He took a deep breath, the taste of freedom electrifying as he turned to Amy and Barbara. We did it, he said, emotions spiraling in his chest. Now, those stories can be shared. Our stories can heal. Amy nodded, her eyes sparkling with tears of joy. Barbara grinned wide, hope radiating from her. And as the world outside began to change and reshape in response to their awakening, Jeremiah knew this was just the beginning. They stepped forward together, ready to embrace their new reality and face whatever awaited, certain that they paved the path to a hopeful reawakening, forever hunting the light amid shadows. Now, before you leave this explosive conclusion behind, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. You don't want to miss the next chapter. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who crave this conclusion. Your support means everything. True fans understand the importance of contributing to our journey together.